There you are. That's the Munich Helles. Hey guys, how you doing? All right, so last week I saw, and I don't know if it was Victor Brew. I think it might have been Victor Brew threw down the gauntlet for the 24-ounce Tuesday. So I didn't see it until I started seeing everybody's videos coming out. So I don't quite have a 24-ounce. I do have. This is about the biggest glass I guess I have. I don't have any 24-ounce cans. So anyway, this will be the best I can do. So I think the purpose of the 24-ounce Tuesday is to kind of just ramble on off the script, or actually with no script, just kind of off the top of your head. So I think that's my understanding of it. So anyway, I'm just gonna bullshit. One thing I do, first of all, this Munich Helles. Okay, so I'm very proud of this thing. This is the first, I went to the Zugspitze. You can see this here in Bavaria back in May, and I'm going to go again, I think, this year. But I went to the top of the Zugspitze, all the way to the top of this mountain. I think it was like, hell, I don't remember. 2,962 meters, so multiply that by 3. So yeah, it's like probably like a little over 9,000 or 9,000 or something. But anyway, I had a Munich Helles on top of this mountain. And when you're up on the top of this mountain, you're looking out over 5 different countries. And it was beautiful. The sky was clear, the mountains were snow-packed, and there was green all through the valleys, and it was just freaking awesome. And I sat there, and I did not want to move. I mean, go back and look at my videos. You'll see the little, and I think you'll see it on the thumbnail. It's you can tell it's me in the top of, like, at a mountain somewhere. But it looked like the Sound of Music up there. Just absolutely gorgeous. It was some big fat German lady that wanted me to slather on some sunscreen because I didn't have a hat on or anything. I'm sitting out there with like short sleeve shirt, and she's like, she said something in German. I think she said basically put this on, and I was like, okay, so I put on the sunscreen. But I sit up there and had a Munich Helles, and it was so peaceful. Since then, I've wanted to brew a Helles. It's one of my favorite beer styles, and this is my first shot at it. And look how clear that is. I can see it through there. You can see my ugly face through the beer. And I'm telling you what, you don't need to go. If you follow that brewlosophy, and maybe I'll find a link to it and put it in the bottom here. You follow that, you don't need to lager for 6 weeks. This thing tastes awesome. Man, it's good. Sorry, I had to sneeze there. But anyway, I'm supposed to kind of bullshit through this 24 ounces, or how many ever ounces are in this glass. I think this is a standard German pint glass. It's got a little, doesn't have the measurement thing on it, so this is the cheap version. So one of the things that occurred to me was that I know I've went through some of you guys' videos, and a lot of you have done like a intro video, hey, this is me, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, this is my background, this is why I'm getting into this. So it occurred to me that I've never done that before, so I'm going to try to use this video to do that. So, as most of you figured, my name is Mike Dean. The name of my brewery is the Dean's List. And I'm not really sure what inspired me to get into this hobby. I guess it was it was a couple of years ago. A friend of mine came over for a dinner party, and he brought 2 6-packs and went through all of them. And I started drinking these things, but he had a pretty good mix of different types of beer style. So I've always liked beer, and it wasn't until like the mid-90s that I started, mid to late 90s, I started kind of getting into the craft brew scene. One of the first IPAs I had was Sierra Nevada. It was a great beer. Oh, by the way, I'm from East Texas originally. I live here in Northern Virginia and DC, but I'm originally from East Texas. I don't know if you can tell by my accent. I've kind of lost it over the years in the Army, but so I had my first Sierra Nevada when I was stationed in Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and we had this, pub that we would go to back when we were lieutenants, and that was like a life changer for me. I had that first IPA, and I go, wow, this is like, and then I had a Fat Tire. The second craft beer I think I had was a Fat Tire. I don't know when Fat Tire came out, but I had one of those, and then I was sold. Well, then this guy comes over to my house, and we had this dinner party. He brings this beer, and man, we pounded it. And I was already drinking craft beers by then. I mean, fast forward to like 2000s, I'm drinking all kind of different beers. And it's funny because when I first started drinking craft beers, I didn't really like the IPAs as much. I mean, I'd drink them and it was interesting, but it's not something I would go and just order all the time. And now I've kind of transformed. I love IPAs. But I also like malty beers too. So it's kind of a. And if you drink my old school sometime, you'll notice I like the hops and I like the malt. I kind of balance them out. So Josh, not Josh Allen, not Josh Shakur, Josh, one of my buddies, one of my Army buddies, brought this homebrew over, and that's kind of what got me kickstarted. So I go back to my office, and this guy that works for me comes in one day, and he's like, "Hey, I hear you're thinking about going into homebrewing," and I'm like, "Yeah." And then I said, "Have you ever had a beer called Heady Topper?" And he's like, "Oh, you're shitting me. That's I'm from Vermont. That's my favorite beer." And I said, "Well, I was talking to my wife about getting into homebrewing, and I started asking her, I wonder what the best beer in America is." And so I looked at the Beer Advocate or something, and it had Heady Topper and Pliny the Elder, like 1 and 2. Some's 1 and 2, some's Pliny Top, some's Heady Top, So this guy goes to Vermont and comes back with a 4-pack of Heady Topper and gives it to me. So once I drank that, I said, "Man, I've got to start picking up this hobby." So that's kind of what got me into it. And a little bit about me, I'm very competitive. And I get very, very uber focused when I get excited about something. One year in 2012, I decided I was going to, lose a lot of weight, start running. So I ran 1,000 miles that year, and then culminated with a marathon. I ran the Marine Corps Marathon. So my wife knows that I'm kind of crazy when it comes to setting goals and getting focused and all that. Well, this beer hobby has been no different. I got excited about it, got put it in my head that I wanted to do it, so I went and bought an all-grain package. I didn't even know you could extract brew. So I started reading a couple of different books on how to do all-grain brewing, and I think I read, Charlie Papazian's book. I read, who's that guy, John Palmer. I read his book, read a couple other different books. I read a book on IPAs, and how to design your own recipes, using percentages of the malts and all that, and calculating IBUs and everything. So anyway, I did a lot of theory. I did a lot of reading, and finally, when I felt comfortable to the point, okay, it's time for me to go out and buy a system, I got on one of the websites, I think Adventures in Homebrewing, and I bought my first all grain setup, and it was the Igloo. You go back to my early videos. It was the Igloo, the immersion chiller, the 5-gallon kettle and hot liquor tank. And I was doing the tiered, kind of gravity feed thing. I got a little PVC pipe kind of sparge arm, and so that was a little over a year ago. So then we started, thinking about doing renovations down here, and my wife was like, why don't you get an electric system? I hear they're clean, they're safe. If we're going to go in the basement, we don't want gas fumes in there, so didn't have to tell me twice. So then I ended up with my setup here. So influences on me. Well, one is I've always liked cooking. My wife knows, hey, are you going to cook tonight? Because she'll cook, and she cooks kind of I don't want to say average, but she cooks like the normal foods. Baked chicken, different types of tenderloins, that kind of thing, steamed vegetables. But she knows if it's going to be a day where I'm cooking, I'm going crazy. I'm doing some kind of stroganoff, or doing, I'll do a homemade manicotti where I make my own noodles, and I just I go freaking nuts and pull up a recipe, and I'm not daunted by, trying a new recipe or trying a new task. I mean, I guess I'm a little adventurous in spirit, and I think that kind of carries over with my beers. I'm not as experimental as some of you guys, like Dan Desolate's, making beer caviar and that kind of stuff. But I am very focused on the recipes, and I think when it all boils down to it, one, I really like beer, so I want to make beer that I really like to drink, and number two, I want to make the best beer I possibly can. I want people to taste my beer and say, "Man, that's Mike Dean's beer. That's a good beer." So that's kind of my motivator. And the more and more I think about it, and I know it's probably somebody brews a couple of batches and says, "Hey, I'm going to be a commercial brewer," but I'm telling you, I'm a pretty focused dude. When I get something in my head and I don't let it go, and it makes all kinds of logical sense for me to pursue this hobby, because I don't think I've encountered one that I've enjoyed quite so much. And I think this is gonna grow to be something bigger. Just my opinion. Anyway, like I said, I'm supposed to, actually I'm not doing a good job drinking this 24 ounces, so I think I'm failing miserably in the 24 ounce Tuesday. So anyway, the guy that kind of started this back up is Victor, Chris I think his name is, and he doesn't live too far away from me. I live here just south of DC. He lives out west, maybe about a little over an hour away from me. So kind of excited when the weather gets nice. It'd be kind of cool to go brew some beers with Chris and have him come brew some beers with me. So anyway, wow, I've been going for 9 minutes. This has been a pretty good ramble. And it's not even a Homebrew Wednesday. And I got another Homebrew Wednesday. I'm going to edit the video tonight on all these different crazy beers I've been brewing. But anyway, that's kind of my story. That's me. I got a lovely wife. I've been married since 2001. I have 2 great kids. I got a 12-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. Great kids. My son drives me a little crazy sometimes, but my daughter can basically wrap me around her finger, and that's going to be dangerous when she gets a little older, so I don't end up spending a lot of money. But very happy little nest here in the Dean household. I brew a little bit more often than my wife would probably like, unless I brew a beer that she likes. And she likes all my browns and porters and nut browns, and she doesn't like stouts, but she likes porters and browns. So I try to brew some of those to kind of keep her happy. And then when I get a chance, I break out and do some pails. But I'm telling you, don't be scared of doing a lager. I mean, I did this lager. All I have is a refrigerator that has a little temperature control dial at the top. Dan from Barrage Brewer sent me a device that I'm trying to sort out right now that I can use as a temperature controller. Really appreciate it, Dan. So I got that thing cracked open right now, trying to get the wire straight. But even with that refrigerator, I mean, at one point when I had to get up into the high 50s, the 60s, I had to kind of leave the door cracked open where the light wasn't turned on, but it was still kind of cracked to get it that high. But, I can lager with that thing as is. And I've convinced myself I can make a pretty damn good lager. So anyway, I got a bunch of bottles ready to go. I just spent this afternoon, since I had another work day off because of the snow. My wife had to go to work. She was pissed. But I cleaned a bunch of bottles, so I'm going to wait until these beers, you can see all these beers that are fermenting, these 4 beers still fermenting. I'm going to get all those guys in kegs, and I'm going to start bottling some beers, and probably send about 4 or 5 beer mail packages to some of you guys. And I'm excited about some of you folks tasting this Munich Helles, because it freaking makes me happy. Very good beer. So anyway, that's my first shot at it. That's me rambling with no script, just kind of bullshitting off the top of my head. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much. But this is me, Dean's List Brewing. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. And a lot of cool guys in this community. A lot of fun. It's kind of kept me from joining a local homebrew community, unfortunately, because I've been so engrossed in this kind of brewtuber type community online here on YouTube. But anyway, that's all I got. Cheers, guys. Be posting another video tomorrow.